Hello, everyone. My name is Demir Talich, and I will be explaining the code live. Let's begin first off. We need to import the required models for this chat application. They include the net or network for the TCP server and the read line to read the user inputs. Next, we need an empty array that stores the arrays in the connections. Moving on, we need to create an interface read line and store it in read line input to be able to process standard input and standard output to the console. On the next step, we need to create a server network callback function and store it in the new server. We then push the socket into the connections array. Moving on, we create a socket event listener for the data string that goes to changing a data to a string and storing it into the message constant. Then a console um, then a console log print statement is executed where it will print a message received, the sender's port, and the message. Next, we create a socket event listener for the end string with an empty callback function. It will return a console log with end connection by and remove one element from the socket, thus ending the connection. We need to create a read line event listener for the data line with an input callback function. We go ahead by splitting the input by a space and storing that into the arguments. We make a switch for the arguments at index array 0. We create the help kits with all the available commands. We create one for my IP. We create must import the operating system module. Create network interfaces for every constant key. In the interfaces array key for each interface callback function, we check if iface family is equal to IPv4 and the iface is not internal. We then proceed by push the iface address and the IP addresses, then a console log to print the IP addresses. My port prints out the port. Connect arguments must be of length 3. Take the arguments array index 1 and storing it in the destination, parsing to an integer the arguments array index 2 and storing in the port number. Checking the port end boundaries, print out an error message if not within those boundaries if found. Not allowing oneself to connect to themselves, next line of code checks for duplicate connections and prints out an error log if found. We then create a new network socket and connect to the port number and the destination with the callback function, push the create new socket, and then print out the connected to. Create a Boolean, initialize this false print log statement, list IP and port, set the Boolean to true, then print out the address and port. Next step is case terminate. If the length of the argument is not equal to 2, print error message, parse the arguments array index 1 and subtract 1, store the connections in array and index in the end, the socket, and the socket and print connection ended. Remove one element from end index for the connections, else print wrong error connection. Do the arguments array index 1 minus 1. Set the argument as a message. 2, create slice by 2 and join by a space between 0 and 100 and store it in message 3. Check if the length of the message is 3 less than or equal to 0. Print out invalid connection, else if statement if message 2 joined by a space and its length is greater than 107. Print out error 100 character limitation, get the connection index array for the connection, store it in the socket send. Then it writes a message 3 to the socket send and prints out that message. For the exit, for each connection callback socket, we end that socket. We close a new server and print out all connections have been ended. Exit process command. Our default case is when an invalid error command was typed. Finally, we set a process argument value array index 2 and a default 136 in both our ports. Finally, we add an event listener, the port number with an empty callback function and print out the running on the port. Now we'll pass it on to AB.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is AB. Well, I'll demonstrate the chat application. You begin by doing type / chat. If you press enter, it'll be running on the default port. I'll run it on 2 other terminals at this point as well. So I'll run this on port 999, and I'll run this third terminal on 888. So we have three clients connected to the server. So obviously we'll begin with a help command and we'll go down the list. So help just lists all the commands. My IP will list every IP on the client. So currently I have 3 separate IPs on my machine. My port will simply show the port of your connection. So if I do my port here, it will also show that these are my ports on that given connection. Whoops, that's an error. And if we do connect, I could use any of these 3 IPs since technically all of them are running on the same network. So 192.168.1.241.999. As you see, I connected to the second terminal. So if I do a list command, it'll show that I have connection 1 and it connects to my second terminal. So if I do send 1 hello, as you see, this terminal now gets a message. However, if I do list here, it'll just only show the connection to my server. So if I do a send 1 here, hello, you see, no one gets the message since technically my second terminal is not connected to any client at this point. However, if I do a connect 192.168.1.241.1337 connected, if I do list, as you can see, now I have a second connection that's listed. If I do send to hello, as you can see, now I have sender port here. And the reason why the port number does change is due to it's using ephemeral ports. Now, if I do let me just connect to my third terminal real quick, so I could just show you that it works with up to multiple terminals. As you can see, if I do a list, send 3 byte, as you can see, it works connecting on the second terminal. Now, if I terminate an ID, such as 1, whoops, terminate 1, terminate 1, there you go, my connection's ended, and now I have an ending connection out there. So if I do a list, as you see, I no longer have access to port 999. And if I do an exit, it simply closes my connection and ends the connection for every other terminal as well. And that is all.